Alex, welcome to Construction Genius.
Oh, thanks for having me on, man.
You know, it's interesting. I was checking out your bio, and you started off life as a Marine Corps enlistee. Is that right? As far as your career?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
In the Marine. Yeah, so I served 4.5 years in the Marine Corps. I was a part of the Marine Corps Honor Guard, so I was mainly stationed. I was an infantryman by trade, but I was selected to go to Washington, D.C. to be a part of their Honor Guard there, and then they decided to – that's usually a 2-year duty station, but they decided to keep me for 4 years. I was in charge of any type of dignitary, any type of anything that would come to the United States. Traveling with the presidents, we would come essentially – like greet them. I didn't travel with that detail, but that's essentially what we did. Handled all the funerals at like Arlington Cemetery. I was in charge of the 21 gun salute team by my last couple of years while I was there. Just a really humbling experience that was. I probably did 350 funerals, just stood guard at our 21 gun salute by the time I got out of the Marine Corps. Sort of the end of the last 8 months of my enlistment, I sort of decided I didn't want to re-enlist, so I started looking at different avenues, whether it be real estate, stock market, crypto. Real estate really caught my attention just in general, just because I enjoyed the investing in real estate. I enjoyed the control over real estate compared to some of the other asset classes. So I joined a flipping mentorship while I was still in the Marine Corps. And what I realized was the person that was in charge of that flipping mentorship, all their long-term wealth was tied into short-term rentals. So they would flip, and then they would essentially use that excess capital to invest in short-term rentals. This is back in 2015 and 16. But I got him on a call, and I asked him different questions regarding how to choose a market and how to choose a good short-term rental. And he helped me decide on the market that I'm currently in, which is Asheville, North Carolina. So
Let me
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Let me just. I do want to go back just real quick. So the honor guard process. What was it about you that qualified you to participate in the honor guard?
You had to be a certain height. I know that's one, and two, you had to be willing to do it. So they would pull you straight from infantry school. Like they would interview you. So
what's the height, by the way?
I think it doesn't exist anymore. At the time, it was 6'1".
Interesting.
6'11", 6'1". Yeah. It's just like if you look at the ranks, because we used to do all the Friday night parades and stuff as well in DC, which for anyone who doesn't know what that is, the Marine Barracks Washington parades it's like 5,000 people every Friday in the center of DC. It's really cool. I think they're free as well, but just to maintain the ranks and the order, it just made sense to keep and I think there was a height limit as well of 6'7" or something, just to keep everyone pretty uniform. But you also have to be willing to do it, because a lot of guys, some guys were voluntold, we'll take your opinion into consideration, but we want to take you. But you have to sort of be willing to do it as well, because a lot of guys just wanted to go to the operating forces and deploy and do their own thing. So I guess those were the two biggest things.
Okay. Interesting. And what would you say is the number one thing that you took out of the experience?
Yeah, it's difficult to boil it down into one thing, but I would say the biggest thing is just the importance of having good mentors in your life, and just strong people to help you. And I just understood the importance of having a structure in your life. So some sort of, the military is the definition of structure. Everything is structured to a point where it's almost negative, but having some sort of, especially with being your own, if you're on your own or being a business owner, some people talk about financial freedom, but a lot of times, it's difficult to motivate yourself. And with having a structure in your life, or some sort of structure that you adhere to, whether it be a schedule for your day, you can lean on that structure if you're not motivated, or if you're just not, I guess the structure has been super helpful. That's what I took from the military.
What about just the fact that you attended so many funerals? Did it become just, routine for you? Was there any aspect of that brought a sort of sobriety to your life, or an understanding of the significance of death or anything like that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, I've never been asked that before. I think it almost made you, because it got to a point. And I hope I'm not offending anyone by saying this, because again, I've never been asked this before, but it did get to a point where you catch yourself. So it wasn't we lived went on about our days. But you catch yourself where it's like some days, like if you're on the 21 Gun Salute team and it's like you're a week to do the funerals at Arlington, some days you would do like 5 funerals in a day.
Yep.
So it's very difficult to just not get caught up in that. Okay, this is just another funeral. But so with that being said, it's like you almost have to catch yourself like every single funeral and like live in the moment and understand that this is it can be such a pivotal moment in a lot of people's lives, especially if there's kids, grandchildren at the funerals. Like they will remember this for the rest of their lives. So
yes,
that's why I was like understanding that and sort of living in that moment and just understanding the importance of that. I've never really actually thought about how that sort of translated to what I do today. But I guess taking it one day at a time would be really important, like in terms of like what I need to focus on today to help me get through this week, this month, and my goals and stuff.
It's interesting though when you think about how, you were playing a sort of a part in a ceremony, and if you're not careful, it can become sort of rote. And like you said, because it's so unique for obviously the families participating, there is an intentional grounding of yourself that you probably had to go through in order to stay in that moment. Yeah,
no, absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, so let's you got out of the Marine Corps and so you go to a flipping workshop, right? So, as soon as you say flipping workshop, I'm thinking, you're sitting at home watching TV at night and, Shark Tank is on and then the flipping workshop commercial comes on. And, you know what I'm saying?
It was more like it. I mean, it wasn't necessarily like an infomercial, but it was like, I mean, obviously I saw the stuff online. Content. But yeah, I mean, I learned a lot in that world because I just like learning about different real estate assets in general. So like, I try to read up on different like self-storage, multifamily, single family, everything. Because at the end of the day, it's just numbers. There's different ways of evaluating different types of properties, but those things bleed into each other. So understanding different real estate classes has been very, very helpful in what I do. So
just again, I just want to go back. So prior to getting to the Marine Corps, were you thinking Marine Corps and then something else? Were you thinking I'm going to get into business for myself? Did you have that mindset as a child?
Not as a child, but definitely out of the Marine Corps. I never thought I was actually going to go to college. I don't know. I thought I was going to stay in the Marine Corps for retire 20 years and retire. There wasn't. I didn't leave them. I didn't leave the Marine Corps because I hated it, and I think that's a lot of people will leave the military because they like despise it, and it wasn't necessarily grass is greener on the other side type thing. It was just more. I felt like I wanted to do more. So when I got out, on top of starting everything, I got my undergrad in business. I have an MBA in real estate development, and then I'm finishing up a doctorate here in business. But I just wanted to go to school and just do my own thing. And with that being said, when I say my own thing, like I had a plan. Like a lot of people say, I just want to do my own thing, and it's just like. That doesn't mean I live day to day. Like there was a plan there of I wanted to get into short-term rentals. I just didn't know what that was going to look like.
Okay. So let's just walk through that. Why BA, MBA, doctorate? Why are you doing that?
Yeah, we're getting deep here, man, which I love it. That was honestly to just fill my schedule initially because I went from working 70, 90 hours a week to essentially nothing. And I forgot who. I must have been one of the senior Marines or someone that had recently got it out. That was like find either a hobby or something to keep you busy initially if you don't have like a job or something lined up, because you'll lose your mind. Which was true. Like when you're used to a certain tempo and then you just cut that off. Like people don't realize that. Maybe you don't want complete full control of your time, or maybe you don't like I said, the structure piece where it was structured to a point where. It wasn't like detrimental, but it was like you didn't realize how much of your day was actually structured in the military. You don't realize how much of your day is actually structured in the military. So that kept me busy, and it also paid my bills because a part of the GI Bill, like they pay for your housing while you go to school. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so it's interesting because when I work with my clients. You get guys or gals who come out of college, they have their construction management degree. They may even have a more advanced degree, and, they walk onto the job site and they're clueless, right? But they think they're not. So how do you balance your academic knowledge with the real world knowledge? How do those two things play together in terms of how you run your business?
Yeah, I had development experience before I went into that MBA.
Okay.
Like in terms of like my first two projects. Again, that's not a lot, but I looked at that as just like what I wanted an MBA, and then Liberty University Online offered a concentration in real estate development. I was curious what that world looked like. That was more, honestly, it wasn't, looking back at all the classes for the real estate development piece, there were probably a couple real estate like specific development pieces where like you got a textbook on real estate development, which is really cool. I love reading textbooks on real estate development compared to like a book written by someone. But
why is that? Why do you like textbooks over a book?
It's way more technical. Like it's way,
and you're
way
comfortable in that world. You like that sort of data.
I mean, you have to. I mean, you have to understand your numbers in construction for sure. But honestly, the MBA in real estate development was more of a real estate financial analysis degree, which like how do you value a property outside of just how to read a budget or whatever.
Interesting.
So that was super helpful. Outside of the multifamily books I read, I learned a lot about like internal rate of returns and IRRs and stuff that like the novice real estate investor doesn't really get into, like net present values, future present values, all that fun stuff.
Okay, excellent. So take us a little deeper dive here. We've this idea of short-term rental. I know many of the guys and gals who are listening to the show, they run construction companies, they make good money, they have, perhaps excess income, stock market's not looking so hot right now, et cetera, et cetera. Why short-term rentals versus long-term rentals?
Yeah, so I mean, we can get on the good and the bad of that, but
please,
the reason why I got into short-term rentals over long-term rentals was just the cash flows. I mean, for example, and this property I'm about to talk about was built prior to COVID, but we've built properties after COVID. My very first property was an A-frame, 800 square foot. It was just what I could afford at that time. Back in 2016, 17, around there. I think 17 is when I started renting it out, but 16 is when we built it. And that one, in the last 2 years, last year it did 84,000 in gross, and it netted 46,000 after all bills were paid. So that was the power of, if that was a long-term rental, I probably would have cash flowed maybe $300 to $500 a month off that, maybe $1,000 if I was lucky. Right. But I'm cash flowing $4,000 to $5,000 a month off of that one rental alone. So that was the draw. Was there was a massive amount of upside if you did it right. And from a development piece, there was really not really a big difference between if it was a long-term rental or a short-term rental. There was no difference. We develop our properties with full kitchens and full bathrooms, permanent foundation, stick-built houses. So that also plays into, there's a built-in exit. If it doesn't work out as a short-term rental, you can sell it. You can sell it. Before COVID, we were able to underwrite them as long-term rentals. That was a backup before selling it. But obviously, everyone listening knows higher cost of everything now. The exit is to sell it to like a couple or like a family if it doesn't work out.
Okay. So this is fascinating. What is the biggest hassle with short-term rentals?
I mean, it's just, it is more tedious, and it's like there's more day to day, right? You have more, instead of having a long-term renter in there that you maybe, besides of a couple maintenance issues, you don't really hear too much about. Yeah. You have people who are constantly coming and going. Now with that, there is like we've automated almost all of our management side of the business. So the three biggest things is going to be messaging, dynamic pricing, which I'll talk about in a second, and then just your cleaning crew. I've gotten away with not hiring an operations manager because what I realized, my boots on the ground is my cleaning company. My cleaning companies go in there anytime between 1 to 3 times a week to clean the property, but they're also inspecting the property. So that the downside of short-term rentals is just there's just more management, but there are tools to help you manage that piece.
Okay, so take us a deeper dive. Give us more on this messaging, dynamic pricing, cleaning crew, all that kind of stuff. Tell us, because let's say I've got a chunk of cash, or and I'm thinking, okay, how can I deploy this? I hear short-term rentals. Give me a little bit of day to day here. What's going on? What are you doing day to day? Yeah,
we'll start with like the 30. So my value to my business at this point, what I realized is looking at land. So I'm really good at assessing the highest and best value in the short-term rental world. like just when we're looking at raw land to develop from scratch.
So excuse me, how much of your stuff are you developing from scratch?
I'd say 70% of it. Yeah.
Okay, so 70% you're building from scratch, and then 30% you're buying an existing property.
Existing property with land that there's some sort of maybe 2 to 4 acres, 2 to 10 acres, whatever, at least 2 acres, where there's room for future development. So we'll rehab that property if there's some sort of rehab that needs to be done, like a minor one, like 10 to 15,000, and then we'll rent that out. While that cash flows, we build more, and obviously we play around with like construction noise and all that fun stuff.
Okay, so when you say you're building more, what size properties are you buying, or what size properties are you building?
Yeah, anywhere between, you can go as small as 500 square foot, and I don't like to build over 2,000 square foot.
Why? Why don't you want to build over 2,000?
It's more like what I found is the sweet spot for how many. It's not necessarily size; it's how much a property can sleep comfortably. I like to stick within the 4 to 6 people, so a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom property. I mean, we do the studio apartments as well, or the studio. We have like an A-frame that's like 500 square foot that has a king bed and then a queen pull-out couch. That's 4 people. Right. So it's like I haven't developed 32. The cabin, the biggest cabin we have that can sleep 14 people. That one can sleep 14 people. That one is 3,200 square foot, and that one, there's more lead time when it comes to booking a property. Whether it be, nobody plans a 14-person getaway or trip on a whim compared to 4 to 6 person properties where people will take random weekend vacations. They'll book that same month. You'll get a lot of last minute bookings, which is not necessarily a bad thing as long as your team can handle it. But those tend to have higher occupancies, and if there's some sort of unique aspect to them where they're designed properly, those tend to rent better. What is
the connection between the number of people in the house? So you got your 4 to 6 and your 13, and the amount of hassle in terms of the cleanup and the issues and the partying and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So with the larger ones, we try to, like the log cabin that we just purchased. We like some sort of buffer between the neighbors, because that, to say that you're not going to have some sort of party with 14 people is ignorant. Right. In terms of like, it's a get together, like there's going to be family and friends that are getting together. So we like to have some sort of buffer between the neighbors. We think about the neighbors a lot. We don't want to be known as this big bad developer, just because that's the stigma, right? The big bad developer coming into the community and just destroying it. Right. But so that the bigger properties, that's what we focus on, is sort of having some sort of buffer. And then when it comes to like a correlation with like parties and 4 to 6 people, obviously trash it, like my cleaning crew hauls all the trash away for the larger properties. We're developing these 4 to 6 6 to 12 cabin communities, just because there's a little bit, there's more scale to that type of business model, these micro resort communities. Where there isn't really too much of a management. There's scale in when you get bigger, right? So like when it comes to the messaging and everything, we have virtual assistants that handle a lot of our messaging. So if all the properties are in the same area, it's easier to send a bigger cleaning crew out there that same day if there's multiple turns. Same thing with messaging. The VA understands the area a little better if they're all clustered in the same area.
So how many, just right now, how many properties are under your control?
Yeah, we have 14, and then we're developing 24.
Okay, and what's your goal in terms of what's the long-term goal?
Yeah, so I mean, I have some pretty lofty goals of doing 650 units in the next 3 years, and the way we're doing that is like right now we're getting under contract with 2 log cabin court communities. One of them has 10 acres attached to it that we can develop. It has 7 cabins on it that we can develop another 10 on. So that's how I plan on getting to those bigger goals, is purchasing already built properties on a pretty large scale and then developing more on them. Okay.
So short-term rentals. Let's say I get myself a short-term rental. Now there's a couple of things here. I'm hearing that you're building and you're renting in resort areas. Am I hearing that correctly because of the cabin aspect of it?
Yeah, cabin aspect. I always like to tell people that these little pockets, though, like it's not, you don't have to go out and find a brand new market. I recommend starting in your backyard. When I say in your backyard, it doesn't mean like in your same city. It might be, But I like to say that there's always an area that in where you live where people like to take an extended weekend vacation or even a weekend vacation. That's where
Right.
I recommend starting at.
Okay.
Is that.
Okay. And then, so I get started, and obviously the default for a lot of people is Airbnb, VRBO. What are your thoughts on that? How do you handle all of that kind of stuff?
So yeah, no, phenomenal question. So up until probably a year and a half ago, I was exclusively just on Airbnb, and then I switched over to VRBO where I was on both of them. And what I realized in the last year and a half is just through my own coaching and teaching other students as well, is that Airbnb and VRBO should just be looked at as a marketing arm of your business. Now, when you're first starting, it's fine to just be on Airbnb and VRBO to get those reviews, cut your teeth a little bit, and understand the management fees if you're managing them yourself. But if you're looking to do bigger communities or bigger projects, or if you're looking to build a bigger portfolio, I'd recommend really focusing on treating it as a business compared to just your property living on Airbnb, right? So that, with that being said, that means building out a direct booking platform and start to bring in your own business. And the quickest way to do that is there's a company out there called StayFi, and it's what they sell is it's a little disc that plugs into the back of your router, and it creates a landing page for your guests. I actually just wrote a Bigger Pockets article on this. It creates a landing page for your guest where they have to input their email address to get access to the internet. And so we capture all the guest emails that come through our properties. So the guest will come from Airbnb and VRBO. We'll capture the email, and then we remarket to them and then push them to our own direct booking site. That's one way to do it. That's the quickest way to do it. And I just saw some comments on my Bigger Pockets article saying it's illegal to do that. It's illegal to take the guest off the platform if they're trying to book with you initially. But I've read the terms. Someone tried to quote them at me. There's nothing wrong with taking them off of the platform after it. I mean, the argument can be made that, but I mean, there's thousands of people doing that now. And I mean, there's not really a way for Airbnb to catch that. And no guest has ever complained. We've hosted over 400 people this year. There's no guest that's ever complained about having to input their email address.
What is the advantage of just staying on Airbnb or VRBO, if any?
I mean, just the systems. Like, you don't have to worry about building out your own platform or anything. I mean, that's the biggest advantage, is that you're looking for eyeballs. You're looking for places to put your property that has a lot of eyeballs, and Airbnb is number one on that. I'm not knocking Airbnb and VRBO at all.
Yeah.
But it's just like you have to understand, when you do that, Airbnb controls your business. If something goes wrong that's out of your control at your property, maybe with a guest, and a lot of times they will side on the guest side, and it's like you have no control over that. In terms of, like, if they decide to take your property off Airbnb, which I've seen happen to a lot of hosts. What's
an example of Airbnb siding with the guests?
Here's a really good example, and I'm happy that you asked that. So a year ago, I would say, because it happened during leaf season, October. So about a year ago, I had leaf seasons is our busiest season. We can charge double or triple rent.
Just tell us where you're at, so we appreciate the leaf season.
Yeah, Asheville, North Carolina. So
lots of leaves in Asheville.
Yeah, pretty leaves, right? So
yeah, right.
That's come through. They had booked, I think, 4 nights, and our rate was like $300-$400 a night. So I had already known that guest was probably going to be a little bit more high maintenance, just based off the questions they were asking.
Yeah, right.
The amount of they were asking, and so they checked. We know when the guest checks in based off of we use like electronic locks that track when the specific codes are entered and blah blah blah. So they checked in at 3:30, and then I get like a notification from Airbnb, and also a message from the guest that essentially they got their fund refunded, and that they're leaving the property. And essentially what happened was the guest had said that they walked in and the whole place was a complete mess. Like, there was like dishes everywhere. The sheets weren't redone. The biggest thing was there was dog hair everywhere, where it's like there was dog hair on the sheets. The lady had said she was pregnant, so she was like very sensitive to that, like the smell. And then she like had thrown up and blah, blah, blah. So I was very, very worried about that, because my cleaning crew at that time had never missed a cleaning period.
Right.
So I called the manager of the cleaning company. They manage close to 100 properties now, for just cleaning. And I had her go out there because the guest wasn't there anymore. And she had said, she called me and she was like, they stayed here. They brought a dog with them. Huh. And so we have one camera that's always facing the driveway. You're allowed to do that, just to monitor if like parties or anything are happening. But for stuff like that, and we checked it, and the guest had brought a dog with them, and I think it was, I don't allow for one night guests. I have a minimum of 2 nights in all my properties. That deters parties. So that I think
is that the
was
reason you do that?
Is
Is it the one night just deters parties? The 2 nights instead of one?
Parties. And what I've realized is a lot of times, I would say maybe 40 to 50% of the time, some guests are coming in at night. Like they'll check in at 9, 10 p.m. Yeah. And then they have to check out at 11. So it's like they already don't have a good experience. A lot of my bad reviews honestly come from one night guests. And it's not their fault. It's they're staying in the property less than 10 hours.
Yeah. Okay.
So so I think that was one way they got around the one night booking thing. And then they got their entire stay refunded. They also cooked a meal on the property. So they checked in at 3 p.m. and checked out at 11. They probably stayed at a hotel that was really close to that property. But what came from that was they called Airbnb and complained essentially of what they lied about, which is what I just said. And they refunded them. They took away something called a superhost status, which is
No, I know. Yeah.
And then they also blacklisted my property. They blacklisted my property until I had everything figured out with them, essentially telling them that the guest lied. And that is where some other stuff had happened, some smaller stuff, and I'd seen it with hosts. But that is where I really started to think about direct bookings. Is like I put 12 months from finding the land to closing on the land to developing it to furnishing it myself, the very first one. I didn't respect I put 12 to 14 months into it. I didn't respect the fact that like a company can control my property over something that I didn't even do. Right.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So
I say that I don't want anyone to be scared and be like, oh my God, no, that's a horror story based off of close to 1,000 guests we've had so far.
Yeah. But it happens, and you're in that position. So that's one of the things where people are like, okay, I got this cash, and you're talking short-term rentals. Do I want the hassle? All those kinds of things. So how do I get started in short-term rentals? If I've got, if I want to try it out, I want to dip my toe in the water. Is it dip your toe in the water kind of thing? Or is it plunge all in? Because if you don't plunge all in, you're not going to get it right. Well, give us something on that.
So when you're purchasing a property, make sure there's something unique about it. I think unique markets, and if you have not a unique market, if you have some sort of market where people are traveling to, stack it with some sort of unique property. When I say unique property, it's going to be different everywhere, depending on where you are in the country, even internationally. Log cabins in the woods tend to do very well. That's sort of like picturesque, especially. I've seen that unique properties are a little bit less seasonal. Like on top of a seasonal market, the unique properties tend to be a little bit less seasonal as well, because I like to say Instagrammable properties. People, that's social media right now. People are posting. They want to. You want your guests to be proud of where they're staying at. And
totally.
If they're posting it on social media, that's killer. So that's free marketing right there too. So that's what I like pushing people towards, is some sort of unique aspect. Now, if you're purchasing a property and you don't want to develop, or maybe you just want to, I guess, dip your toes. When I say dip your toes in the water, when you say dip your toes in the water, I just like to say that your exit is selling the property. If you're developing it, your exit is selling a property, because there's still an inventory shortage.
Right.
I think there's going to be an inventory shortage for the next couple of years, because it's going to take some time for that to catch up. It's getting better. But you can always just sell the property if it doesn't work out. But the unique properties, the property becomes an experience in itself during the slow season, and then during the high season, the market becomes the attraction. So there's a little bit of a
say that again. Say that again.
Yeah, during the slow season, the property can become the property becomes the attraction. It becomes the experience in itself, and then during the high season, the property could still be the attraction during the high season, but you're in the high season for that reason. And high season can mean different things in different markets.
Yes. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. So now you've made a conscious decision, it sounds like, to go with smaller properties. Not like, because I follow some dude on Twitter, and this guy's like blowing out short-term rentals, but like super luxury, just mind-blowing stuff. Why have you gone with you've told me already with the number of people. Is that the main reason why you've gone with the smaller properties over the larger?
For some reason, for some reason, the numbers don't correlate. If you have a property that sleeps 6 people and a property that sleeps 12 people, sometimes what I've seen, at least maybe it's market specific, but I haven't seen a direct correlation as you can charge twice as much for that property.
Okay.
So that's the reason. I think 4 to 6 is that sweet spot, is like there's some sort of barrier, maybe starting at like 100 to 150 a night. And then going from there, depending on where you are in the season. But yeah, that's why I do that, because there isn't a direct correlation between the larger properties and the smaller ones. And also with the luxury stuff, because we don't go crazy premium finishes on everything. We sort of rely on the structure, whether it be a log cabin, A-frame, cottage, chalet type of property, to sort of speak for itself compared to the finishes. Honestly, the guest doesn't care if you have a standing seam roof compared to a corrugated roof. They really don't care.
Right.
I know if you're looking at it.
How do you know that? How do you know they don't care?
I mean, you can just look at the reviews we have on our properties and how much they make. I've never looked at, maybe if someone's a tradesman or a person that works in construction, they'll be like, okay, damn, they spent a lot of money on that standing seam roof, but a normal guest coming in, vinyl plank flooring, they honestly, they don't care.
Okay.
We like to do granite countertops because they're durable, but it's like they're so awed by like the actual property itself, and you can get away with some like interior design pieces, accent walls, and something that sort of speak for, like, that help the property compared to just like the premium finishes. And trying to find people to do that stuff right now is very difficult.
Right.
A lot of luxury materials are on back order, so it's like that's my spiel on that.
So what's your part in the business that you've developed? So
Yeah. So, I mean, I find the land and I coordinate the financing, because I have investors that I bring on, and then I push everything to a GC. I'm usually the person who's sort of putting together about 80 to 90% of the floor plan. My GC is obviously coming back at me, telling me that's not going to work. So like in terms of like finalizing everything, I put together the community, whether like the look of the community. Like I like to go with some sort of theme. So if you look at my website, cottages, A-frames, barn style type of houses, log cabin communities, some sort of theme. And then for the most part, I'm choosing the floor plan. And then from there, my GC, depending on how big the project is filling in the blanks with like framing plans, electrical plans, and all that fun stuff.
Okay. So
foundation plans. I'll put together the community without having the foundation plan, without having the land.
Right.
And then depending on what the land looks like, we put the foundation together,
interesting.
plans together.
So what if I've tried short-term rentals and I failed miserably? It's like some guy, drives Uber for, 2 weeks and it sucks. And so he stops, but I know this is not quite the same thing, but, I've got myself a short-term rental, and, I've been on Airbnb, and, Alex has got 3 horror stories. I've got 12. What can I do to maybe reset, or what do I need to focus on there?
So the days of like just purchasing any type of property and throwing it onto Airbnb and it cash flowing like crazy, I think those days are gone, especially with higher interest rates now. Mm-hmm. So you really have to you need to ask yourself, can I furnish it properly for it to be appealing to guests? But 2, is there something unique either in the land, the property itself, there's some sort of draw to the property, to even the land? Like if you have mountain views or whatever, is there a draw to the property? So that's number 1. And then number 2, I'll tell you if say you just developed a property or you just purchased an awesome property that you've done your analysis on and blah, blah, blah. I think it's the most, I've probably helped over 100 students just optimize their property. The number 1 thing, and it's the simplest thing, is making sure you have good pictures. Just like if you're listing a property, that is what's going to catch the guest's eye. We love doing drone photos. Airbnb doesn't allow it. VRBO allows for like 3D floor plans, and then also they allow for video. So like we almost shoot a commercial. If you're on VRBO, we shoot a commercial for our properties. where it's like you're advertising your property. So pictures are the number one thing. And the number two thing that people don't think about is like the listing description, is the words that you're using for your property. VRBO and Airbnb at the end of the day are just search engines. They have a search bar. So there's ways to optimize. There's SEO parameters that you can follow to help you optimize a property better. So those are the two biggest things when it comes to the management piece is good pictures, and then optimizing for SEO for Airbnb and VRBO. I use Fiverr for that. I don't write my own listing descriptions. There's people out there that can write them for you for like $100-$150. Where they'll write your captions to your pictures and everything, and it's optimized for the specific website.
Yeah, that's terrific. Okay, so tell us a little bit more. Obviously, you're developing your own properties, Alex. But what else are you doing that can help people who are listening and may want to get into short-term rentals?
Yeah, so I recently put together. I spent the last 6 months putting together on and off a short-term rental development course. It's over 120 videos. There's group coaching in there. There's templates, checklists. There's furnishing templates, furnishing checklists of like what I use item by item. I essentially took like a construction checklist and created a furnishing checklist. So that's a big thing that's in there of all of my properties. There's workbooks where you can follow along with the videos. I take you from A to Z. So like, I think a huge benefit to your audience is you guys are going to understand maybe the first couple sections already, because you guys are going to understand some sort of the development process already. And then there's also 3 sections at the very end. There's 10 sections total, but there's 3 sections at the end that dive into management. So it's like, okay, I understand how to develop a unique property or whatever, but I don't know how to manage it. So there's a management piece in that as well.
So we're talking A to Z as far as short-term rentals are concerned. Everything's included.
I tried to create a course that I tried to create a course that I wish I had when I started 6 years ago.
Okay.
So I did it yesterday. Like, it's also become a hub for me because I'm using these templates every day. Like the templates and everything that I teach, like I'm using these checklists every day in my business.
Excellent. That's excellent. So if people want to get more information, learn more about the course, how can they get hold of you, Alex?
The easiest way to do it is just go on my personal site, which is alexjarbo.com, ALEXJARBO.com. If you want to go directly to the presentation, the video that sells the course, that's going to be bdbstrmasterclass.com, or I'm sure it'll be included in the show notes. But honestly, the quickest way to do it is just to go to my personal site.
Excellent. Alex, so we'll put that link in the show notes. You've been very generous with your time. Let's just end it with 3 action items. What are 3 action items I should take immediately if I want to get into short-term rentals?
Yeah, number 1 is understanding that access to the property can be just as important as the property itself. So you got to think of the whole guest experience. So like working with a real estate agent, and I recommend working with a land agent, like that specifically deals in selling and purchasing land for sellers and buyers. So that's number 1, is understanding that the guest experience starts with the drive to your property. So making sure that your guest isn't going 30 minutes up a gravel road to get to your property.
Very nice.
So that's number 1. Number 2 is just hopping onto Airbnb and just looking at what the Airbnb recently redesigned their website in the last 3 months. And they showcase the most unique properties in the area. So that's a very quick way to figure out what's unique to your market. It's just putting in the address to your market or like your city, and then seeing what comes up. And then number 3, honestly, would just be really doing your research on just how to manage a property. There's a lot of really good free resources out there, like on just short-term rental management in general. Bigger Pockets has really stepped up their game with that. That was one of the reasons they brought me on as a blogger.
That's excellent. Last question. You're in Asheville, North Carolina. If I'm out there, what's the one restaurant I've got to hit?
Oh my gosh, yeah, this is phenomenal. It's a surprisingly, for how small it is, a really good foodie city. It's a restaurant and a property. You have to go to the Grove Park Inn. The Grove Park Inn and the Sunset Terrace, those are primo. Like that's sort of like a hidden gem in the city. Everyone knows the Biltmore Estate, the biggest privately owned house in the country, but people don't know about the Grove Park Inn, which is a beautiful hotel.
Okay, Grove Park Inn and the Sunset Terrace at the Grove Park Inn?
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yep.
Alex, you've been very generous with your time and your insights. I appreciate you joining us here on Construction Genius.
I appreciate you, sir. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome.